I'm David Pace here with East Idaho News, and we have two guests to our studio today. Arron, the Executive Director of the East Idaho Aquarium, and his Marketing Coordinator, Ryan Joos of Volpine Marketing. So we're here today. We are discussing some allegations that we've received about some of the care and treatment of animals at East Idaho Aquarium. And we also want to get the bigger picture of what the East Idaho Aquarium does here in Idaho Falls and some of the work that you do here in our community. So let's start off Arron, give us some background on what is the East Idaho Aquarium and what's a lot of the work that you're doing here.
So the aquarium, it was really a concept that came about in 2013. Me and a buddy were actually just cleaning fish tanks. That was the business that we were in at that point, just cleaning them. And I don't know, some crazy idea was like, let's start an aquarium. And so from there, we built the aquarium. We've had lots of people come in and out that helped make it possible. But the ultimate goal was really, we wanted to educate, we wanted to inspire people through hands-on experiences at the aquarium, because that is how I gained my love of animals, and mostly fish. I was really a fish person, but I loved all animals. But it was always through like cleaning fish tanks and seeing them and how they interact with you, because so many times like you just think it's an animal, but when you actually see like they recognize you, they create a bond with you. Like, this is just the coolest thing ever that we wanted to share. So it was my passion to share that, and it's been really a wonderful experience overall, being able to share my passion and see others come through and get that, like, you can see it in their eyes, like, yeah, we did it again, another check mark. Somebody else is going to love animals, they're going to care for animals. So, and I think that's ultimately our goal. Like, there's so much stuff, you get behind a computer screen and you're like, yeah, look, you can see these fish, but it's so much different when you're right there, and you can gain that love for the animals way more if you're able to really gain that trust. And I feel you're more willing to protect them in the wild, in their habitat, if you're like, yeah, this is a cool animal, I don't want it to go anywhere, so that way we can support them through that.
So tell us about how you've accomplished that, and what are some of the experiences you offer to the community?
So we built a lot of, to start, we got the community involved. We said, hey, like, we've got this great idea, and a lot of businesses were like, yeah, we can buy into this. Like, this is something the community needs. And it was from 2013 to most of 2016, I really pushed, trying to get people into it. And in 2017, we got a building, and at that time we started with $5,000. So I don't like anybody setting up fish tanks or realizes 5,000 might get you one. So we had to build this dream inside of a building, and luckily the building owner, it's an old movie theater, and they're like, hey, we'll give it to you for 2 years. In 2 years, your rent will start. We're like, so that was a huge help. So we started building, first we just gutted it. We had to get rid of all the little studs so we grinded tons of stuff down. So we built the vision of it, and then we posted on Facebook, like, hey, I already had a Facebook page and we had a few followers, but I said, hey, here's the new home to the East Idaho Aquarium. Didn't really do anything. 100,000 people saw that post, and it was like, wow, like, this might actually, this is gonna work. I think people are, and for all those years that I was going to businesses like, yeah, I need money to get this going. We're gonna do this. Nothing. That post, I had businesses come. They were just like, we want to be part of this. We want to be, and so we were able to create what the aquarium is. And when we opened as a work in progress. So everything has been we didn't open at 100% capacity, and the community's been really, really great about that. And I wouldn't say we even really hit 100% until after probably 2021 is when we started just maxing out the facility. We're like, yeah, I think this is it. We're done. We're here. And so things that we do for the communities, I mean, we go out to schools. I mean, that was one of the very first things. We opened, right, just thinking, yeah, we've got this cool interactive aquarium. People are going to come. And almost instantly the schools are, hey, do you come to schools? And it's just, I got a fish. Like, how am I going to bring a fish to a school? And so, it's when I was like, well, what do other aquariums do? And so we started building this education program that had other animals that we could bring to the aquarium. And I mean, through that program, it's grown so much that we have two to three full-time employees that take care of the education animals and then like go to schools. They're just that busy. I mean, if you see our vehicles outside of the aquarium, that's what they're there for. They're going to and from schools and doing presentations, which has been amazing. Like, it's something that the community would not have had if we weren't there, to just be able to say, like, here they are, here's artifacts of them, here's why they're cool, and seeing all of the kids. I mean, I think we visit, there's probably like 200 school visits that we go to every year. So I mean, 200 classrooms that we get to. And I mean, the cool thing about that is a lot of times we have companies that will pay for those. They're just like, hey, we like what we're doing, don't make the school pay, like, it's on us. And so we've got grants that help. We have tons of field trips come in. I mean, at the end of the school year, anybody who comes, they can see school buses basically from open to close school hours, I guess. And from 9 to like noon, we are just packed, just one after another, doing school tours. And seeing the excitement that they get is just, to me, that's what it's all about for us. It's one of those, we wanted to do that, but everybody coming through is what really helps sustain those missions that we have. Because I mean, it's great seeing people come through, and that's what helps keeps our doors open, and seeing the energy and the excitement and the love that you can really see people get. Or there's even people that are like, whoa, I mean, there's so much in the aquarium that there's really something for everybody. I mean, I've got people that keep reef tanks that are like, this is amazing. If you ever like throw some of this stuff away, like, let me know, because I want it. I can't even get this stuff. Because some of our coral it grows that fast and that well that we're like, well, somebody wants it, go ahead. Like, we're probably just going to throw it away because it's taken over. And so it's, in that aspect, helping the aquarium community out a little bit, getting some corals that maybe they couldn't have. And, growing plants. I've had people come through and be like, this is my dream tank right here. And they'll just come through and look at that. I mean, they'll run through the entire aquarium and just stare at it. Like, this is trying to get ideas, like, how can I do that? So it's really like fantastic to see everybody get something different out of it. And it really has been the more that, like, for the first few years, I think I worked, it was like 100 to 120 hours a week. I never went out. Like, I was just constantly, because it was a work in progress, I wanted to just go through it. Like, I made it to Home Depot to get some supplies and go back and did that project and just kept working. And so it wasn't really until, I start going out and people are like, oh, we love the aquarium, it's amazing. You're like, oh man, people know about us. So I mean, it's fun, at the beginning when people would be like, what are you doing? You're like, oh, we're working at the aquarium. We have an aquarium. And, a few years later, everybody's just like, we love the aquarium, it's amazing. So it's been, for the community, I think it's been fantastic, because we see a lot of those good reviews. We see a lot of the things that we get to do that normally probably couldn't be done. Like, I think the zoo does a good job doing a lot of that stuff, but I'm sure they're overwhelmed. And so we were I'm not that we're hand in hand, work together, but we're able to serve more of that community and really bring awareness to the animals and for the animals.
So tell us about the animals that you have at the East Idaho Aquarium. How many animals do you have? What different species are there?
So we've got a little over 2,000 animals total. Wow. I think it's like 2,143 or something. And then we have 204 different species. Everything from jellyfish to seahorses to sharks, rays, tons of freshwater fish, all sorts of birds. We have lots and lots of birds, porcupine, sloth, gator, bugs. We have bugs. So we've got a lot of cool stuff that you can see. With our education program, there's a lot of animals that people don't even get to see regular when you go through. So there's, the general admittance, and then there's our education program that has animals that aren't even on display. We got like hedgehogs, ferrets, lots of different snakes and lizards. So there's a lot. We take care of a lot, and we have a big team that takes care of all of them.
Excellent. What's some of your favorite parts of the aquarium? And what do people love to see when they come in?
Oh my goodness. Everybody likes something different, really. And it's hard for me. Like, there are times that I'll sit and just watch something and be like, I haven't sat in front of this exhibit in a while, and just really appreciate all of it. And for me, it's always, for the most part, it's always the fish. As a fish person, like, there was never a big enough tank. There was never enough fish. So you'll just sit there and, you always wanted all of them. So you just sit there and like, oh my goodness, this fish is so cool. And then you could go to the next exhibit and it's like, oh my gosh, this one too. But probably the sharks hold the biggest spot in my heart. That's one of the coolest things to sit there and see them. One of the greatest accomplishments that I've had is seeing that our blacktip reef sharks had pups, because it's such a rare thing that not every aquarium gets to see. And it's just, for me, that was amazing and really proved like, we must be doing something right, because they're feeling safe enough, comfortable enough to actually breed, whereas in other facilities they don't. Not saying they're doing anything wrong, like sometimes you just get lucky and did something extra right. But I think for people, there's always something different. I mean, there's people that they walk right to the doctor fish and they'll sit there and keep their hands in there forever and just get cleaned, and they call it good. Or some really love the rays, some really love the birds, some hate the birds, some it seems like every kid loves the sandbox. Like, right. It's a huge hit because we get sand everywhere. I mean, it's one of those, whatever it seems like pains us at the aquarium is usually something good because somebody loves it. So the sandbox is really messy, and the employees will be like, oh, gotta clean this up again. It's like, but some kid really enjoyed it, so you made somebody's day. So it makes it a little bit easier to clean, but it's always just fun that I'm not really sure what somebody's favorite would be, because there's so much, and everybody is something different. Some people, the iguanas, they love going and hanging out. I mean, I've seen a kid come, he rode his bike, and he would just go and lay in the lizard cage. I was like, I don't know what you're doing, but cool. Like, that, you want to like hang out with the lizards. And so he really enjoyed the lizards, and some people love going to the trout and going underneath the waterfall. And that's one of my favorite spots too. Everything just kind of disappears. You just have water crashing down. And when you look out, you've got macaws, you can see fish, you can see iguanas, and it almost feels like you're in a rainforest sitting behind a waterfall, and it's just dark, and you just hear water. So, and I could do that too. I could sit there. I find myself often just finding an exhibit and like, I haven't really like appreciated this one in a while, but it's dang cool. So
tell us about some of the interactive experiences that guests have at the aquarium.
Yeah, so we've got like right off the bat, we start with it's almost like a tide pool exhibit. We call it our fish only exhibit. It's filled with tangs and angelfish, and you can feed them algae. So I mean, we'll feed them mysis, which is like little shrimp, and we'll feed them pellets. And then they're really just a grazing fish, almost like a cow, but they're little small cows, and they'll just sit there and eat algae all day long. So people will take little algae strips and you'll feed them, and the fish come right up and eat that algae. And it's a way that, through doing that, the fish know, like, they sit there and follow people around, and if you stick your hands in there, they kind of look at you like, nope, you don't got what we're looking for. But it's cool to see that interaction when they get to do that. We've got shrimp that clean your hands. We've got the doctor fish. Typically they're used in salons, I think, and that people will put their feet in, they'll clean their feet. We don't do that. We just let people do their hands. We've got parakeets that you can go in and they love being fed. We've got rays that typically it's an exhibit that we've just redone and we're working on getting back up and going. But rays are one of the huge hits where you can pet the rays, you can feed the rays. We've got river monsters, river giants, I guess, the really big fish, and you can feed them. I think it's Thursday and Fridays, or maybe just Fridays, I forget what it is off the top of my head, but you can feed our gator. That's when his food goes out. So, and it's one of those, you just kind of like drop it in and he eats it. So it's about the only time you'll ever see him really active is going after his food. And then we've got Rufus, who's probably, he's kind of a highlight. People love him. You can pet him, and he comes right up. I mean, he knows too, like when he hears the token machine crank, he's like, it's for me, I'm coming.
Porcupine, right?
Yep, the porcupine. So, and he comes right up and you can feed him and pet him. And I mean, he's one that we get to take to schools, and he does tricks, and we call him our pokey puppy. So that's
Do you still have sloth encounters?
We do, yeah. We have our sloth encounters, and yeah, we let people pet her. They can feed her. She does paintings for them, so you can take your painting home, and so she's really a very unique animal because it seems like most mammals, like when it's hot, it's humid, they don't have very much hair, but the sloth is one of those. They like it hot and humid, and so the aquarium is just kind of a good fit. That's a question we get a lot, like, why do you have a sloth? Why do you have it's like, well, sloth just kind of fits. They're pretty cool. And they take up the space that she uses is space that we couldn't have used for anything else. So she literally lives above our gift shop. And one of my concerns was, at first was like, well, is she gonna like poop on people? Like if she's just crawling? But sloths, for whatever reason, it's in them. They come down trees, they poop on the ground, and then they go back up. So I don't know what it is. So it's like, okay, it's not gonna poop on anybody. It's just gonna sleep for most of the day. And so, but people love, I mean, to me, it's one of those animals, like for the most part, 90% of the time you're gonna come in and she's sleeping. But that 10%, 5%, whatever it is when she's moving, it's just the coolest thing. And she just gathers so much attention just because, I mean, she's cute and she looks cuddly, but I mean, she's one of those we just like, yep, give her space, she's not, we've got like working time for animals and non-working, and so if the animals aren't working, then we're just like, this is her time, this is her space, this is her home, let her have her, you can take pictures, you can take selfies, but we're gonna let her be. So
Ryan, tell us, what does it mean to have an aquarium here in Eastern Idaho? Why is it such a big attraction?
I mean, I'm born and raised Idaho Falls, right? So the fact that we have an attraction of that nature is massive. To have something that brings in the volume of people that it does every year is just fantastic. The economic impact of an aquarium is notable. Like that it is something to do while in Idaho Falls. Idaho Falls for the longest time has had kind of a reputation of being the gateway city, the doorway to adventure, like the come and go past go kind of a thing, don't collect $200, whatever, right? Like it had a reputation of just being like, well, we're really close to Yellowstone, so the cool stuff is nearby. And that was the way that like Idaho Falls really branded itself. But now the fact that we have destinations of this quality is amazing. And I've spent enough time within the aquarium, doing a lot of the marketing, capturing a lot of the content. I'm able to see the kids, the adults, everyone that comes in and interacts with it, to be able to see these animals that otherwise they would never see in their life. Never have the opportunity to be able to experience that. So the fact that they're able to come and be able to do it in an old converted movie theater that otherwise was doing absolutely nothing in a sector of town that needed life breathed back into it, the impact is massive from an economic and frankly, honestly, kind of a cultural experience.
Excellent. How many visitors do you have in a typical year?
Oh man, we're right around 100 to 120,000 people come
Yeah.
through in a year. So it just depends on, and I think in 2021, I think we had close to like 150,000 people come through. That was kind of an anomaly year, and it was just, and people had all sorts of free money that I think they were spending, and so we've never had that many, but it's kind of interesting, right? COVID was a really bad thing, terrible thing, but it was also very pivotal in the aquarium's presence. So it was interesting that we skyrocketed after 2020. So
People could wear masks and still feed the fish.
yeah. And I mean, we were really kind of built for protecting from germs anyways. We had hand sanitizing stations everywhere already. Like, we didn't have to really make any adjustments. We had a hand washing station, so it was just one of those, like, wear a mask, wash your hands, we've got it all, keep your space. So yeah, we were already built for that, and I mean, we're still that way. It's not like we've changed any of that. We've always had the hand sanitizing stations, so it was definitely unique to see that, something so bad, and it was really ended up being positive in the end for us. So.
And how many employees do you have taking care of all these animals?
Oh man, I think we've got, holy smokes, I think we're 10. We've got 10 employees that just take care of the animals. So we've got, so we have a head who basically, she does everything animals. Like, if anything goes wrong, they go to her and she instantly sends it to the vet, and the vet's like, yep, do this, do that, just keep an eye on it. And then she'll turn back and this is what we're doing, give updates. She's probably like double full time. She works a lot. And then we've got somebody who is solely over the birds, and then he's got an assistant that helps him. So there's 2 full-time people on the birds. There is somebody who's just over all of the fish, and then he's got three assistants that help kind of throughout. And then we've got somebody who does all of our reptiles and mammals, and then they've also got 2 or 3 assistants that help them. And then we have tons of volunteers. So we have volunteers that will come in and they'll kind of help ease the load for us as well. It's, okay, we need you to clean this for us, and volunteers are a huge help as well. So and sometimes, they get to do, when they've been around long enough, they get trained and they'll do fun things like feed the sharks. Like, that's their calling for the day, and they've just done it so long, they'll go, okay, they prep it up and know what it is, look at the diet and make it happen, and they'll take it and double check it, and they're like, yep, that's what they're feeding, make sure. And so volunteers are a huge help for us. And then we've got our customer service team, which is basically that. I mean, it's like a customer service, animal service. So they help the people that come through, like, here's how you interact with them, here's how we're gonna safely interact with these animals, because that's ultimately our ultimate goal. Is it's not a very great interaction if you get hurt. It's not a great interaction if something bad happens. And so that's what the purpose of the interaction is. Anytime you work with animals, there's a chance something could happen, and that's why you've got somebody that's like, this is what you need to watch out for, or like, hey, for whatever reason, this animal's feeling this today. So I mean, it happens. Like, just like people, we're not always happy about everything, and so that's what they're there for, really, to say, yep, this is how you interact with them. They're used to this. They're not going to mind if you do this. They're not scary. This is how you feed them. Be prepared. This is going to happen. That's kind of a fun one too, because the parakeets, a lot of people don't realize, when you go in there and that food's presented, they're like, they're all coming. And some people are like, what? I thought maybe one or two. Like, no, they get really excited about their food. And that's, we've got somebody, our vet really puts a good diet plan. Like a lot of times we'll do the research and we'll say, I think this is a good diet. What do you think? And she's like, yep, that's a good diet. And so, one of the complaints that we get sometimes is, well, you're out of food. Well, that's their diet. Like, we don't want fat animals. We don't want skinny animals. Like, this is their diet for the day. Either you feed it to them or we do, but this is what they get. And so there's the team that goes into it really makes the aquarium great. Like the customer service, showing people around. So it's all really one big team that makes it work. The husbandry team keeps them healthy, keeps them happy, keeps them going, and then the customer service keeps the interaction safe, shares fun thoughts. One of my favorite employees, I don't know, they're all great, but I get a lot of feedback from this employee. He comes up and he's like, hey, fun fact, and he just will tell you all sorts of cool stuff about any exhibit, and people are always like, I love that guy, like he is so cool, he makes the experience. But we get it from we've got animal trainers, and they're really in charge of our education animals, but they'll come through and they sit there every hour. They've got an animal out and they're teaching it tricks, showing it off, and so there's that oftentimes makes people's days too, because they're like, oh, I didn't know these birds were so smart. Like, sometimes, you go to SeaWorld and they put on shows, and we're just constantly open about doing it and just doing it all the time for people. And so seeing a raccoon on a leash or a porcupine on a leash, or walking around with a hedgehog, or walking around with birds and listening to them talk, or showing off how they can crush nuts. And so it's a unique experience that has lots of levels and nuts and bolts that make it run and turn.
So when you have these interactive experiences, how do you make sure that all the animals get fed what they need and there's different people feeding shrimp to the rays, the birds, the fish.
Really, they have a diet. And so like our parakeets, for instance, like we just say, yep, this is how many birds we got, this is how much food they should get. And then we let customers feed that out throughout the day. And then if it's not, if they don't feed it all out, then we go in and we actually just put it in little cups all around. And then at night we actually have a veggie chop that will also, it goes everywhere so that way the birds can equally get it. So everything is based on a diet. So we'll just, really. And then we've also got, like, when they get their vitamins, we'll target feed a lot of our animals and make sure that they're getting their vitamins. So like the rays will have a general, they're going to eat this amount, but we're going to go in and make sure that they get this amount with their vitamins, so that way they're still getting all the good stuff. Because kind of a fun fact, unique thing, when you freeze fish, they lose a lot of their nutritional value. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to put that nutrition back into them. So if they were to go out and eat a fish, it's going to be filled with all sorts of vitamins and proteins, but if you take that fish and freeze it, they lose that. So you've got to add it back in for them later. So that's one thing that we do is the husbandry team they have ways of knowing all of the different animals, and they'll make sure that they get their vitamins, and then just overall a wellness check on them as well. So
what are the qualifications of your staff? Do you have a marine biologist on staff, or do you train employees specifically?
Yeah, so right now we have got, we really look for experience. So when we've recently done our interviews, the biggest thing was, what is your experience with these? What is your knowledge of this? Are you going to be able to come in and make an impact, or are we going to have to really teach you? And if we're going to have to teach you, we usually, at this point, we just pass on you. So like our reptile person, one of the things with reptiles is some people, I mean, we have big snakes, we've got all sorts of stuff. And so we do like an actual, like, what is your knowledge on them test? And then we do a hands-on, like, okay, are you ready to really show us that you know how to do this? Like, how would you interact with this snake? So that way we can see, yeah, this is somebody who knows what they're talking about, as opposed to somebody who's just read a book and they're like, yep, check, check, check. So, and in that we've gotten really fantastic employees. We do look at people with degrees because they've put a lot of emphasis, you know, they've put at least 4 years into, you know, I really love this, I'm passionate about it. So those are always pluses. But if we get somebody who's been doing birds for 12 years but never went to school, but they know the ins and outs, like, a lot of times for us that's more valuable than somebody who got a degree. But not saying that we wouldn't go, we have a lot of college students that will train up, but a lot of times our best quality knowledgeable people are people that did it as a hobby. So that's one of our, it's an interesting note, because if you go to a lot of aquariums, you would think the reef tank would be something like, oh, we've got to have this. A lot of aquariums don't have fantastic looking reef tanks because they're a lot of work and they're a lot of time, which a lot of aquariums just don't have. Like, and you got to have the right person who knows something about that. And 4 years of school usually is not going to make you a great coral keeper. So that's one of our people that works is, he is just a hobbyist that kept reefs forever. And I mean, his application was more of a, yeah, here's my reef tank, here's what it looks like, here's the fish that I have, here's my knowledge, and it's like, yeah. And it's been fun because he's been able to really take our saltwater exhibits kind of to another level. Like, it's one of those, like, you know, they were great, but then you've got somebody who's like, oh, like, I know how to fix this, and he goes in and just fix it, and like, I've been working on that for so many years and you just did it. Like, so, and it's just, you know, they're around the equipment and they're around and they really just get it. So we're willing to train people, but we definitely prefer people that have that experience. And it's been, for us, for years, I think we took the model of other aquariums like ours, who would just hire high schoolers or college that they're like, oh sure, animals are cool, and we would really work on training them, and then when the novelty of it wore off, they just kind of left, and we're like, well, there goes all that training. And so we've really gone a different approach at this point, and we've gone to more of a, what is your background, what is your history, and really trying to get really good people in there, which we have seen fantastic results from. And it's been, I don't know, it's been fabulous. This is really, I love the aquarium right now. The people, like I said, the team that we have is really a fantastic one. So
excellent. So we've received some reports from former employees who have some concerns about some of the animals and how they're being taken care of at the aquarium. This week we received a letter from People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals who filed a report or asked for an investigation from the U.S. Department of Agriculture into some of the treatment of the birds and some of those hands-on experiences and interactions. So we thought we look at some of these instances and get your side of what's been going on and what steps the aquarium is taking to address some of these concerns.
Perfect.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. The letter from PETA stated that a whistleblower has documented numerous instances of this facility's failure to provide birds with proper and humane care, and reported that in 3 months of a former employee's work at the aquarium from August of 2023 to December of last year, that 150 to 200 animals died at the facility during this time period. We wanted to give you a chance to respond to some of this, as well as some of the records that PETA has supplied about animal deaths at the aquarium and get kind of a perspective on, is this normal, or are there changes that need to be made?
Yeah, I haven't really had a chance to look over that specific time period. I'm not sure it's as high as that number is, but without really like diving into it and like researching what was happening at that time. I do know with the birds, we have changed a lot of things with how we take care of them, and I feel like a lot of the deaths that were happening then were actually probably baby birds that were hatched, and it was more of like accidental hatchings, because we have all these bird boxes, and an oversight on ours was some of them are really hard to get to, and so as birds sometimes just fall out of the nest, it happens in the wild, it happens, and so they would fall out, and you know it's a long fall, and they would perish, and so we would take that, and that's something that we take note of is, yep, we had a baby bird die. And so one of the things that we have changed to eliminate that is we've removed all of those awkward bird boxes that were hard to get to, and we made them all manageable. And as they lay eggs, we just remove those eggs, and then we use them as food for other animals, because that's a lot of animals will use eggs to eat. So a lot of our fish will eat them. We'll feed them to some of our reptiles. Like we've got a Gila monster that likes his eggs, and they're all just kind of perfect size for them. And I think as part of that, like I've seen a picture with our freezer full. It's not a very big freezer, and so it looks worse than it actually is. So it'll look like, oh man, they've really packed their freezer full. But unfortunately, like I had mentioned earlier, is we did have our baby sharks. Our sharks gave birth, and we lost 3 of them, and they were quite large, and they took up a good portion of that freezer. And so, yes, the freezer looks full, but it looks a lot worse than it was, just because those sharks really took up a large portion of it. And you know, when our animals die, the reason we freeze them is I actually take them and we'll go bury them just on a piece of property that I have, so that way for us it's one of the, I just hate deaths. Like it's one of those, everybody deals with it differently, and usually my first is just, you know, I get really upset, and then I really dive into, well, why did it happen? How can we prevent it? How can we do better? And so a lot of times that is, you know, you reach out to other people doing it. It's like, what have you found successful? What do I need to avoid? What do I need to, you know, have you had this happen? Have you had this happen? And so, I mean, I've had people like, you know, is your death rate the same as others? Like, you know, I honestly haven't asked. I don't really care, because I'm more worried about how can we do it better? How can we lessen the amount of animals that we have pass away? So yeah, and a lot of it is sometimes when you get new animals, they die. And so those are things that we'll mark down as well. It's like, yep, this came in, it died. It's a very stressful for a fish. Oftentimes I'll put myself in that situation. If I were to get boxed up, just randomly box me up, it's dark, they send me somewhere, I have no idea where I'm going, and then they drop me off, and it's like, okay, where am I? What am I? There's all these new faces, there's new habitat, you know, and then, so this is a very stressful situation for these animals, and so oftentimes we do lose a lot, even just in the transportation, which is very unfortunate. And then once you get them, you know, you've got to help them overcome that stress. You've got to offer them lots of different foods, because it's what is the food that they're going to eat, like, because that's one of the most important things when you get animals is getting them to eat. Once they start eating, they're like, okay, we're good, we can start getting energy. Like everything's energy. They start eating and they get their energy back, and they can fight off most of these elements that they get. But that is one of the biggest concerns when you get new fish, especially anything that lives in that water, is if they get stressed, which they're stressed, there's no doubt when they're shipping they get stressed, that they could get something, could get a bacteria infection, they could get a parasite they could get. And so we just put these animals, and we call them, our vet observation area, and we just watch them for 2 weeks, a month, and see how are they doing, how are we, and you can focus on, are you going to eat this? If not, let's take the food out, because wasted food is just making the tanks nasty. So, and a lot of that is, really working, a lot of experience working with animals, and that's why we've gone the way that we have. It's really hard to train that to somebody. Like, you got to be very patient. Like, this could be a 45-minute thing. Like, you're going to have to take your time, make sure. It's very important to do this. So it's one of those things that we have done. The team we have now is much better about, yep, we're going to take the time. You've got me scheduled here for this amount of time. I'm not going to go home early, like they're not. So, and they take their time, and they check everything and make sure everything's good, and the health. And so, to the point, a lot of the animals are now being interacted with. It's like, as I do my job, I'm going to take you out so that way I can multitask. So it is one of those unfortunate things. I guess I don't have the answer as to what exactly died, why it died, but things are definitely, a lot of it is just, I feel like it was that the baby birds falling out of their nests. Some of it was new fish coming in and they perish, and that's all stuff that we mark down and say, yep, this died here. So.
And you send annual reports to the Idaho Department of Fish and Game?
We do, yes. So as they can request it at any time, we're like, yep, here we go. Every year we have a, it's called a large, what is it? I can't think of it. But we have to submit paperwork every June to them, and we list all of the animals that we have, anything that's changed. And so, yeah, we go through basically our inventory. And the same with USDA, they cover all of our birds and all of our mammals, and we'll send our inventory to them as well. So,
and it is hard. Like, anytime you talk about an animal that has died, that's obviously that's a tough thing. Arron mentioned how hard it is on him and his staff, but we have to keep in context as well. Like, the lifespan of some of these animals is so short. And they've been operating since, some of them since 2013 or beyond that, right? So did animals die? Absolutely. That life cycle is so much shorter. So the likelihood, especially when you have the volume of animals that they do, the likelihood of having that many deaths during that time is pretty likely, based on the life cycle and the volume of animals that are kept in the facility.
So based on the records that we've been provided by PETA, but they requested them from Idaho Fish and Game, there were 2,028 animals that died in a 3-year and 3-month period between 2017 and, let me look it up, June of 2019 and September of 2022. What is the aquarium doing to address this mortality rate, and what steps are you taking to improve?
So really everything we do, we try to do better. I think when I really look at those numbers, a lot of that was because that was during our growth time. It was times that we were bringing in a lot of animals, and like I said, it's very stressful. We also had a lot of people just drop animals off to us, and so there's a lot of how old is this animal? What is its history? So a lot of times we don't even get histories of those animals. So we do the best that we can. We take a lot of advice from our vet, how do we improve? We've actually recently had a vet that just reached out to us, who all he does is zoological medicine, and that's really was his emphasis. And he worked with a lot of big aquariums, and he's a teacher down in Utah. So we're actually looking at hopefully trying to get him to tag up with our vet and maybe get, 2 veterinarians coming through and really looking at the health of the animals. But yeah, a lot of it is just us really trying to do, everything we do is to do better, to make our system better. So like our ray tank, for instance, this past year we had those power outages. During that time, it took out our pumps. Like, so we came in and our rays were struggling. And so our instant thing was, well, we've got our, next door, we have a big pool. So we just took them over there and we got our filters going. And I mean, the filters were already, so we got them over there, we acclimated them, we got them going over there. I mean, unfortunately we lost them. I mean, they have to have, those filters are their life systems. And so we just redid the whole exhibit. It was just one of those, and you know, it's one of those things as we were doing it, we're like, well, look at this, like this is a problem and this is a problem and this, just things that we couldn't even see. And so we got a lot of flack for it. Like people were like, why is the ray exhibit down? It's like, well, it's for their health. Like hopefully you'll bear with us because their health is more important than you getting to feed them. I'm sorry, like it will be back someday, but for us it's the, you know, we found issues, we were going to fix those issues, and it actually works way better. I mean, I've had people that are like, wow, this is top notch now, this is really doing its thing, the water flow is good. So some of it was just the initial mistakes, that some of it was like in the concrete that they poured, and you're like, well, how are you going to fix that? You are going to have to shut this whole thing down. But so yeah, I mean, we've really revamped everything like that. And so I mean, for us it is really just about the health of those animals and making it better and continually doing better, like reaching out and finding people that know stuff. I mean, that's, our vet is very good at what she does, and there's some things that, you know, she's like, well, I don't know that much about this, but we're going to learn. And so that's why it's like, wow, if we have two and this guy's really good at this and you're really good at this, and like it's just going to make the aquarium that much better. And so it's something that we're really excited about as well, as to bring, I mean, there are just things he's like, oh yeah, this is as simple as this. We're like, oh man, cool. So a lot of it, and you know, animals, they're different than humans, right? We have one baby, if you're lucky or not lucky, however you look at it, you have twins, and you take care of them. Like you do a really good job taking care of your one or two offspring. Fish, they have thousands of babies in the hopes that one survives. So sometimes you don't even get the best genes of those fish. You can do everything right and still have those animals die because of the stress that triggered something, or they just had bad genes. Like, yes, it lives 8 years, but he's not in there like, we don't like, I've got cancer, my stomach hurts, you don't get any of that out of them. And so a lot of it could just be the genes. And so during those first few years, I think it was a lot contributed to, we were growing, we were bringing a lot of fish in, and some of them were dying and some were doing great. And our mortality rate is way low, and we're also not bringing a lot of animals in anymore because our tanks are full. So it's just one of those, I think it's part of the just bringing fish in and the stress that brings on them that's going to it's going to give you that higher death rate. It's one of, like if you go to PetSmart or Petco, I'm sure they probably have thousands of fish die every year, not over the course of 3 years, because of that same issue. They're bringing them in and they get stressed and they die. So it's just one of those unfortunate things, really, that's how these animals operate.
I think one of the greatest areas of improvement that I've been able to see has been the quality of the husbandry team. So kind of over the years, I think, you know, Arron and his team have really identified of like what really makes a great fit and a great team member for someone who's caring for the animals. And as they've really dialed in, that kind of persona of who they're looking for, they've been able to go get those people, and like their retention for people within kind of those spots has been a lot better because they know really who they're actually looking for. And so the quality of care has just improved dramatically in the past, I don't know, but maybe a year, would you say? When was it you say you feel like you've made some good shifts on your husbandry team?
I think, yeah. probably a year, well, this year, I'd say February time frame is really when we reevaluated, you know, this isn't working, we need to go a different route. So I think before we just had I don't know, you call it like a shotgun approach, like let's just get as many people as we can, we'll pay them not very much, and hopefully we can, because there's a lot of work, we can train them, we can get it done, which, you know, we tried that for a few years and it just didn't work. And so we went to, well, how about we hire one individual, pay them a lot, let them know there's going to be a lot of work, and that has worked better. I mean, to the point, today one of my employees was like, you know, I'm going to go see this, there's a reptarium or reptile house in Utah that's having its 5th birthday, and they're having this huge celebration, and she's like, man, it's like, I'm going there, I'm not getting paid for it. Like, it's going to be fun, and working here is fun, but I get paid to be here. Like, it's basically the same. Like, they love their job so much that's not even like working. They just love coming to work. It's not difficult for them. And so I mean, it's just one of those, the attitude is there. Building that culture has really made a huge difference in, you know, finding the right people for the right job. It's to the point, you know, you get those kind of, like, I just love my job. Like, I've been here 6 months. The novelty of it has not faded off. It's, you know, just an excellent fit. I mean, nobody needs to go to their boss and be like, I just love it here so much. Like, I don't know how many get that opportunity to hear that, or like, working here is just the funnest, it's the greatest. And, you know, sometimes in my head it's like, man, all you do is like, you clean up reptile poop, but you think it's fantastic because you're love it. But I mean, people love it. So it's just like me, you know, when I clean a fish tank, like, I love it. Like, that's my passion. I love diving the shark tank and cleaning it, and like, so finding the right people really has been huge in the care and the love that they give the animals, and the knowledge. It's, you know, they're able to look at something like, oh, we need to change this fast because this is what this animal's doing, and they're able to make those adjustments. And so, whereas some might just look over it, and so,
or report it and say it's not my problem.
yeah.
I think that was the biggest issue. Like, right now they have a team pretty dedicated to not only identifying issues or whistleblowing, but identifying issues and doing something about it. Like, that is their responsibility, is to care for the animals and to see a problem, make an adjustment, make a plan, make it happen, kind of a thing. And they have those type of team members that are that invested at this point. And in the past, they've had people who have always cared. That's always been, and there's always been people who have been invested, but not nearly to the level that I think they have now.
Let's talk about some of those protocols. If a problem does come up, what process does the aquarium go through to resolve it? If an animal is sick, or a fish or a bird needs treatment, what do you do?
Yeah, so we've got our, one person who's in charge of the health of all of the animals, really all of the departments. And so if anything looks weird, or there's an illness or a death, it's reported to her. And then if it needs to go to the vet, she instantly, I mean, usually it's just to take a picture, I'm going to send it to the vet, and the vet gets right back, says, oh, it's this, you've got this medicine, you can just use this. Or, you know, this doesn't look too bad, let's just keep an eye on it for a week, see how it heals. You know, if we need to do a tissue sample, then I'll come in and do that. So it's really, that's the chain of command. So I mean, that's just for, I think, the ease of our vet. She's a very busy person, and so just to have one voice going back and forth, and then they can come back and say, this is what we're going to do, this is what we think it is, we're going to take care of it this way. So.
And you're a nonprofit, is that correct?
Yes, we're a nonprofit.
How do you operate? You have a board of directors?
Yep, so we have a board of directors, and so yeah, we discuss lots of things. So yeah, we're with the board, they're really in charge of like the finances. I'll take the financial stuff and say, here's all of our spending. We'll go over the animal health. We'll say, hey, here's how many animals we lost. This is how many we lost last year. We're vastly improved here. We're, you know, we've put in, I mean, as part of that loss, we've done, it's called an Apex system. So it's literally a computer on the fish tank that it'll give you alarms. Like if a pump goes off, it will send you an alarm. It's like, oh, I better. So in the middle of the night, you can get that alarm and you can run and be like, I gotta go figure out what's wrong with my tank. Because I mean, that was one of our really issues too in those beginning years is, you know, we'd have a pump go out and you come in and your whole tank is crashed because they didn't have any oxygen. So it's, you know, some of those mechanical errors we have improved by hooking them up to alarm systems and things like that that will help us take better care for them. So if something does happen in the night or the power cuts off, or then we're getting alarms and we can run in and make sure the tank's okay.
Is that only on the Ray tank, or is that?
It's all of them. So we
Okay.
have worked on setting it all. I mean, even to the point we've got it on our, we make our own water, and so we've got it on those to be like, you know, is a pump failing up there that it's not stopping? Did a valve not work? And so we're avoiding floods. We're avoiding. So yeah, we've really tried to put these computer systems on all of them. Not just the rays. Like the rays are important, but so are all of the other things. So it's one of those, you know, when somebody's like, hey, you do know they have this, and I was like, no, actually I didn't know. Thank you for letting me know. Like this is fantastic. I mean, it'll even do tests for you. So if something goes wacky in your water, it shouldn't, because we're very consistent with things. But if something does, then it'll send us alarms. Like we've got lots of sensors now. So all of those tanks are pretty much almost computerized now. So that way the care for them is even better. So.
And you have about 40 tanks total, is that right?
Something like that, yeah, 40 exhibits somewhere. I don't know off the top of my head, but that sounds about right.
And when did you install this Apex system?
Man, it's been over the course. It's been a very difficult thing. So it's been over the course of 2 or 3 years, and we still have a few that we're figuring out, getting all the hiccups out of it. But so it's been a continual. So it was 2. So yeah, and I think this year we did not have the Ray one up yet. So, and that was, you know, unfortunate. That's why we need it. But yeah, it's been a complex. You'll get it going, and then the internet dies, and so then we're like, oh, starting over. And we've had quite a few people come and work on it, and so we're really working on dialing it in. So,
excellent. Let's talk about some specific instances and give you a chance to respond to them. Is that okay?
Okay.
So there was the blacktip reef sharks. The mom had 4 pups on September 8th of last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from the declaration that we received, they were removed for their safety, so the mom wouldn't eat them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they were placed in a mixing tank, or a small pond, right, to adjust to a new pH level. And then they were placed in with the rays. Is that correct?
Correct.
And within a couple days, 3 of them died.
It was shorter than that. So longer than that. So we had one that she looked bad. There was probably within a day she died. We had the other 3 were doing really good. We were getting them to eat. We were doing, and at that point we had just got this other facility, so we were working on getting that pool up and going, so that way we could move them. So it was never going to be a permanent thing. It was just the best that we had. We gave them the best chance of survival. And so yeah, we had one that it jumped out one day, and so that was really unfortunate. And then we had one that it was eating great. It was actually the biggest. It seemed like it was growing the best and doing well, and then we came in one morning and it had passed. We're not really sure what had happened. But the 4th one, we were able to move over to the other building, and we grew it out for about a year, and he's now living over at the Boise Aquarium. So
that's a big success too, right?
It is huge success. I actually went over for his first birthday and took videos and saw how much he had grown, and even I mean, the love that was over there, like people coming in was like, oh my gosh, that was a bait, like it's his birthday. And so, yeah, it was awesome. And that was, I mean, really, I reached out to the Shed Aquarium. I've got a contact over there that works with used to work with Blacktips, and she's like, yeah, that's really the best you can do. Like, hopefully everything goes well. And so we got 1 out of 4. So yeah, I mean, it was sad to lose 3, but exciting that we got 1.
The one survived.
Yeah.
It's still going great.
Still going, yeah.
That's awesome. Talk about some of the birds. There have been reports that parakeets have been stepped on or sat on by guests during public encounters. That's what PETA issued in their letter. Is it this common? What do you do to help protect animals?
Yeah, so we've really gone to, before we did not have a double door system and really anybody could go in and out. We had a sign that said, please don't go in. So what we've done is we create a double door system and we create it where it's locked. Like, you literally can't go in unless it's locked. And the birds usually aren't on the ground when you first go in. And so our adventure guide will go over all the rules. Like, when you go in, you're gonna sit down. Once you've sat down, I'll come in with the food, I'll give you the food, and they're gonna land on the floor, they're gonna land on you. Once you're done, you can just let me know, or if it's too much for you, let me know, and I'll clear your feet, and you're gonna shuffle your feet so we don't accidentally step on them. So really, I mean, we take a lot of precautions so that way those don't happen. So it's really the customer service's job, to say, really be open with them, be like, these are the rules, you need to sit on the bench, be careful of your feet, so that way, if you get scared, just keep your feet still, like, don't do the stamping. And so it's really helped a lot having that system, and with the customer service able to really help them and teach them, like, this is what needs to be done.
There were reports that sometimes if the birds would fall out, that the protocol was to put them in a pouch, take them home and feed them, and that they would frequently die. Sometimes they were put in quarantine cages, and they didn't have the hands-on treatment or the staff to individually care for each one. And then finally, there were an employee said that some of the birds have been put in freezers if they've fallen out. How are you handling the baby birds in that situation now?
We just don't let them hatch at this point. So we've completely moved the boxes, and we check the boxes, and we just take the eggs out and feed them to so that way we don't have that. We're really not set up. There's so much other stuff to do. We don't have the time to take care of the parakeets. I think originally it was like, oh yeah, the birds will just take care of them themselves. And so when they weren't, like, it's just one of those, like, okay, well, we're gonna stop this altogether. Because it's very traumatic when a bird falls out and you're like, what do I do with this? Because I mean, these baby birds, the mom is gonna get the food and it's gonna crush it up and feed it to the baby, and we don't have the time or the efforts, or really I don't think even the knowledge. Like, there's not anybody. If I had somebody who's knowledgeable in doing that, I would feel comfortable, like, yeah, take the eggs, incubate them, and let's raise them. But a lot of it comes with that. We don't have anybody that can do that, and so we don't allow the birds to hatch, and we just use their eggs as food now.
Last fall, you added some cockatiels to the parakeets, right?
Yes.
And PETA mentioned that a veterinarian had recommended that all the cockatiels be tested for parrot fever.
Mm-hmm.
And the report that we received was that the birds were purchased and then put in with the other birds without being tested. Is this true? And if so, what steps are you taking to protect the birds and the people who come in and interact with them?
So they were actually tested before we got them. So anytime that we purchase animals, we pay for the vet there to check them out to make sure they're healthy and good, because we don't want to get an unhealthy bird. And so I think the individual just didn't realize that had happened, and so and that happens with all of our birds. So there's a large emphasis on cockatiels, but it's all the birds. It's not just the cockatiels or the parakeets can get it, the cockatiels can get it, all of our parrots can get it, and so they all get that vet check. before they even arrive at the aquarium. And once they're there, they're good. A lot of it is, you know, if something strange starts happening, then we might like take a look at it. But really, we have our vet come through once a month, and you know, if there's things that look out of normal, or you know, she'll let us know and be like, yeah, we need to take a look at this. And so we live and die by the vet. We follow everything she does. We do the best we can to have a good relationship with her, so that way, and we try not to be a burden to her either. But I mean, I think it's, for us, we look at, you know, what does the vet want? What does the vet think? So I would never ignore what our vet has asked or done. And so, I mean, it's just because it's really important to us. And for certain of our permits, they require us to follow everything the vet says. And so we always look to our vet for guidance, and we follow. So, I mean, the diets have to be vet approved. So, and as long as, you know, when some of these people that come in and they do our checks and need to upgrade our permits, they're like, what does the vet think on this? And we're like, this is what she thinks, and they're like, okay, well. And so I don't know if they double check with the vet, if they just take our word for it, or if there was a problem, if they'd go, well, is this what you said? Yep, that's what I said. That's what we did. So, but yeah, we love our vet, and we do everything that she asks. So
And that's the feedback that, you know, I had a chance to have kind of a private conversation with the vet, in which I asked, you know, how did she feel? Once again, this is kind of an independent conversation. I happened to be talking to her at something, and I just asked her what her thoughts were on how the aquarium is responsive to what she says. And she had nothing but positive things to say, as far as, she said there's never really been any feedback I've given that hasn't been implemented. And she felt like the aquarium had been very, very responsive in any feedback that had been given. So if there has been direction that that the aquarium has received, it's been implemented.
Who's your veterinarian?
Dr. Seda.
Okay. She's based here in Idaho Falls.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is it Eagle Rock Veterinarian, so over in Ammon.
Okay. The USDA regulates, and you mentioned this, both mammals and birds. Do fish receive the same priority if one gets sick or needs attention from either a vet or time in the quarantine tank? And if so, what are your procedures with that?
Yeah, 100%. Like, that's, if a fish is sick, we take a picture and we send it. It follows the same exact routine as a mammal or a bird. I mean, because really, I mean, that's what we're all about. We're at aquariums. We're all about the fish. And so there's lots of, you know, we'll take pictures and send it to the vet, and she'll, yep. I mean, we've had tissue samples taken from our rays, like, you know, what's wrong with them, so we 100% do. Even with our rays, in the past, you want to talk, when they come with stuff, they had, I forget what it is, like a parasite, and they were completely healthy, and then they died. And we're like, what's going on? And so we gave it to our vet, and we're like, what do we do? And so we sent off samples and found out that, oh yeah, they've got a parasite they need. So the other ones, so we started giving them shots, so that way the others could beat that parasite. And now, as a precaution, it's like every 6 months or so, we take stool samples and we have those tested as well. So that way there's always that, let's not do that again. Like, who knew that they could have parasites building up for years and years that will eventually make them sick? I mean, it's part of, a lot of these animals, rays, come straight from the ocean. So you never know what they have or what they're not going to have, or, you know, what their genetics are. So, and those are, the more we know, the better we can be, and the more we learn, like, okay, let's not do that again. Let's send it off to the vet. So that's where it's been great to have veterinary care that, you know, and she was very open, like, you know, she doesn't know, does anybody in Idaho Falls really know rays, sharks, any of that can, And so was very open. She's like, I don't know a lot of this, but I'm going to find the answers for you. And so she has been fantastic in that way, because there's not a lot of people that have done health checks on rays in Idaho Falls. And so she's been fantastic about that. And that's why we're excited to bring in this other vet who might have more experience and can probably help in both ways of, getting the best health out of these animals for us, so that way we can take the best care for them. We always like the animals come first, and we want the best for them. So, and some of that is, sometimes we make mistakes and we have to learn from them, and we're just going to do better.
One of your former employees said that he would report an issue such as a fish that was infected with ick, and that it would go to the head of animal husbandry, and then it wouldn't always be relayed to you, and that sometimes there was a disconnect there, and action wouldn't be taken until other fish had been infected in that tank. What steps are you taking to address that? Is that an accurate representation, and how would you respond?
It is. I think I get most everything back, and I've seen pictures of what they thought was ick, and it's not ick. Ick literally looks like it's a parasite, and it just looks like you have salted the fish. I mean, it's like chicken pox, really. And so we haven't really had a lot of ick outbreaks. And that's one of you will quarantine these fish, and usually in the first 2 or 3 weeks, it will present itself, and then you can treat them for it, and then you can move them into their exhibit, and usually they will not get it, because it's one of those, in a weakened immune system, they're going to be more susceptible to that. And so if there's ever a time, it's very easy to spot, just because, there is so many, and it usually starts 1 or 2 or so. But a lot of that, especially simple, I would call it simple. It's a very a common disease amongst aquarists, and so it's pretty easy to treat. So that's, if I can get in there and be like, yeah, this isn't ick, it's something else. And so of the photos that I saw, like the fish that had ick, they did not have ick at all. And I think for the most part, if it's a lot of it either goes straight to the vet, or if it's something like that, it comes to me and we're able to figure out a treatment for them. So.
Okay. There was a story from January of an iguana that the extension cord burst into flame, and then the heat lamp, that was a 600 watt heat lamp, was no longer operating, and so some of them weren't receiving enough humidity and enough heat to maintain health as far as their skin and that. Is this just a one-off? Are there steps that you've taken to address?
So we just redid the heat. I don't even know what to call it. Their heat source had just died, and so we just got a new one in. Oftentimes, I think people don't realize that in a public place like ours, there's certain things you can't do. And so they're just thinking, oh, at home I do this. And so what happened in that instance is nothing caught fire. It was just somebody used an extension cord for the heat source, and it melted a little bit, and we're like, well, that is ruined now. And so we just removed it, and we just plugged it right into an actual outlet like it's supposed to be done. And as far as humidity goes, the room they're in actually has a very high humidity that's perfect for the iguanas. And so their humidity, it's something that we always monitor and check anyways, and if it's low, we can spray them down a little bit, or they can soak in water. But for the most part, we have not had a problem with their humidity, because that room stays at such a high humidity. Even with a dehumidifier that takes 30 gallons of water out of the air every day, we're still have a super high humidity for them. So humidity is not a problem. I mean, we've got the heat lamp, which provides them heat, and then we've got our UV bulbs, which is basically like acts like the sun, gives them that vitamin D, and they also have heat to them as well. So, and I mean, so the iguanas can get really as close as they want to it. They can get farther away if they're feeling too hot. They've got a big pool they can go take a bath in if they're feeling too hot and want to cool down. So there's a lot of gradients for them that they can pick that heat for them.
There was an alligator, and you had the alligator and the caiman together in an exhibit, right?
Yep.
And the decision was made that it was important to weigh the alligator and see if they were both capable of staying in the same exhibit. Is that correct?
It's not correct,
Okay.
but so the alligator's we got this alligator. It was about 20 years old, from what we were told, and he was pretty little. Normally, I would say, alligators, they get big. Like, I don't have the space for an alligator, but they do most of their growing the first 20 years of their life. So I was like, this could be a good fit for our aquarium. So I let the guy know, I was like, here's the stipulations of us taking this. Like, one, he's got to get along with the caiman. Like, there's got to be a mutual, like, it could work, it could not work. Like, we're just going to, we're going to try it. If it doesn't work, you're going to have to find him a new home. And it seemed like it worked. And the gator was very tame. He'll let us pick him up. He'll let us, pet him. And he likes his food. And so he was kind of underweight. And so for the first year, he kind of just bulked up. And so we're like, oh, now he looks healthy. Like, he's been getting enough food. And then after that, he started growing a lot. And the weighing part, we just weigh them every so often, like every quarter or so we take them out, because what they get to eat, they get I think it's 5% of their body weight is what they should eat a week. And so the weighing them is just part of the keeping them healthy and creating a diet for them. And so, yeah, the thought process here was the rate that he was growing, I was worried, he's going to outgrow this exhibit. My initial thought of, should I take a gator? Well, they do most of their growing in 20 years, it should be fine. It's one of those, he's growing really fast. Is he going to stop? Is he going to keep growing? Do I need to find him a new home? Because he's getting to the point where I don't know if you're going to fit in here much longer if you keep growing exponentially. To the point, I think he was 20 inches when we got him, and now he's close to 6 feet, in 3 years. He's really just shot up. So the weighing part of it is just routine. That comment is, do we need to find him a new home? And that was, we've got this other facility, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to build him a home over here. So we're in the process of just making him a new home, so that way it's bigger and better for him, and he's not going to look so cramped if he keeps growing, then he won't look super cramped. So
The report I heard was that it chased an employee. That employee jumped on the sink, and the gator was there. That part's not in the video, but how do you ensure the safety of your employees, especially, obviously this is a friendly gator that you say is safe to handle?
Oh yeah, we pick them up all the time, and so
It's like a dog with scales.
I don't know if I recall that situation. So typically what happens is we'll gate off. So there's the gator exhibit, and then there's a bathroom. So we'll gate it off so that way we don't have any bystanders coming through. And then I will go in, I'll grab the gator, and I'll take his head part, because he's now getting to the point he's kind of just too heavy for me to just pick up. And so I'll grab his front part, and somebody will take his back end, and then we'll just walk him over to the bathroom, and then we'll set him down. And then we can, because once we go in there, they kind of get, the caiman's really mean. And so that's one of the important parts, is we pull the gator out so that way we can weigh the caiman, and then we weigh the gator second. So, but that's what I've done. It seems like forever. I go in there, grab the head, and once you got him, he just kind of relaxes. So, and then we move him. So never had an incident. It's not really in him to. He just kind of like hisses and he acts tough, but he's not really tough. I mean, like I said, he acts tough, but.
And the fact that an employee in a situation might suddenly feel uncomfortable, I mean, that's not too surprising, right? That might happen, even if it is a relatively safe thing. It's an unusual animal to work with and stuff like that. So if she felt uncomfortable, you know, that's not unsurprising to some degree that she might feel that way, because this is an alligator, right? And whereas I've seen plenty of pictures of Arron like snuggling with this alligator, essentially, the fact that she might have felt uncomfortable in a situation that really probably wasn't as big a deal as it may have appeared, that's not too surprising that someone would react that way.
It's definitely an intimidating animal. So
it's your crocodile hunter experience right there.
Yeah, something like that.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about how you test the water tanks. What are you looking for? And we heard that in 2023 you implemented regular testing. And how do you respond to those indicators?
We've done testing since the beginning. It's always been, we do it once a week. And it depends on the exhibit as to what we're looking for. So like our reef tank, we're looking at lots of like calcium, alkalinity, some of the pH. Some of them it's just, you know, what's the ammonia, what's the nitrite, what's the nitrate, which is really showing you a cycle. Like, you know, as food goes in there, is processed, it turns into waste, like how is our bacteria breaking that down? And so we test for those things. Like, are we doing our water test? Are we changing the water frequently enough? Are we, you know, it really depends on the exhibit. We test, you know, the salt water, it's the salinity. Like, is our salinity staying consistent? Is our temperature staying consistent? So everything that we do, we just try to keep a very consistent number base for. So.
Do you have any problems with animal bites for either visitors or staff?
Unfortunately, that's part of the business, I think. Animals are going to bite sometimes, and we do the best that we can to prevent them, right? So that's why we've got customer service. This is how you interact with them. This is what you need to look for, and then yeah, as we're working with new animals, like I think there's just, you really have to create a bond with them. You never know, you know, new people, like sometimes you don't know what their indicators are, so you might push them too far and you're like, okay, yep, you've had enough, so with animals it's fight or flight, so you never know, are they gonna run, are they gonna fight, or are they just okay? Like, so really learning the animals. So I think there's definitely more bites with employees just because we're the ones that have to work with them all the time, and it's part of what happens, but we definitely do the best that we can not to have those happen.
It's just kind of a law of averages thing, you know. You spend enough time with enough animals, eventually one will react in a way that you just wouldn't expect, kind of a thing. And it's just what it comes down to. They're animals, they're well treated, they're well cared for, they're well fed, but at the end of the day, they are animals, and sometimes they'll just act in ways that we just wouldn't expect, you know. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast there to some degree. But I know they're great, especially when interacting with the public and stuff like that. The trainers, the caretakers, the people who are really familiar with the animals are always there, very involved, educating and training, and these different people are kind of experiencing and encountering these animals that wouldn't be familiar with how to do it. So most of the time, I think it's a very, very safe environment as long as these individuals are adhering to what the caretakers are saying. And if they're not, then they're kind of asked to no longer be part of the encounter if they're not going to be abiding by the guidelines.
Mm-hmm. One of the concerns that I've heard from several former employees, is that there's a large number of animals in a relatively small amount of space. Do you feel that you're able to adequately manage those populations, and what do you do if there's, for example, shrimp that there were 50 placed in, and they're somewhat territorial, and so they kind of fought each other, and some of them died that way. How do you manage the balance in the ecosystems and keep the animals as healthy as possible?
Yeah, I think we just you just have to have your experts that know, I think, what they're doing. So you have to kind of just take, is this going to be sufficient? Is it not? Is there enough hiding places for all of these animals? Is there you really just have to kind of rely on, I think, experts. I don't know about adding, not that I recall, but yeah, so I don't know, just the way that a lot of our exhibits are set up is, the animals have to have a place to hide, they have to have a place to get away, which is going to reduce the bites, right? If they know there's a place they can run to, then they're going to do that first. And so that's really our biggest, how do we create an environment that one is going to be somewhat natural for them, so that way they feel comfortable, and then finding good food sources. So yeah, it's one of the things, I think the one shrimp thing that we actually found is they're an invertebrate, and if somebody puts copper in their tank, then it actually is lethal to them. And so I think a child actually put a penny in our, so yeah, we were washing the sand one day, and we're like, what on earth is this? And so we've had much better success once, and now we know, okay, well, we got to start sifting the sand through for pennies. There's some of these things that are just so unknown that, and a penny just hidden in the sand, who would have thought that would be a thing? But yeah, that would be lethal for them. And a lot of that is, when we have something like that, we take our water and we'll actually get it shipped off, and we'll have it really professionally tested. So you can do really cool things and get I feel like pretty close with some of these tests that are available to the public, but nothing like a lab that can really dissect it. So, and that was one of the things that anytime we've got that, we'll send it off, and that was one of our indicators that time, was when we had copper come back. We're like, copper? There shouldn't be any copper. And so we're like, well, maybe. Started searching the sand, and sure enough, not sure how it got there, but just enough, even a small amount. So
it sounds like with an aquarium with that many different types of species and animals, there's a lot going on. There's a ton involved in taking care of these animals and giving them the specific diet that they need to thrive and to live as great of a life as they can. What is your message to the community as you face some of these allegations, and what is the aquarium doing moving forward?
Really, I think we just kind of look at the allegations, and for me at least, I'm like, that's not us anymore. We're continually growing, just as I think every individual, you can look at some point in their past and be like, oh, look what they did, but are they still doing that? No. And so a lot of it is, we look at those allegations, and it's it's like one of those, oh yeah, it's kind of an embarrassing time for us. Nobody likes to look at, a mistake, or for people that keep animals, nobody likes to look at look at how many animals that have died in your care. So for us, it's kind of an embarrassing and a somber thing, but at the same time, we just say, you know what, that's not us anymore. These are the things that we've changed. We've made changes to the way that we take care of the animals. We've made changes on how we hire people. We've made changes really kind of everywhere, just so that way we can, and continually research, everything we've ever done. I opened it as a work in progress, and I feel like I'm a work in progress at all times. I'm knowledge-wise, constantly, and I think that's what's fun about the group that we have, is the things that they find fun are researching about the animals they have. So even when they are at home, they're researching, how can I do better, which is not a requirement by any means, but it shows that they love it. They love their animals. They take ownership of those animals. If there is a problem, they're fixing it. They're not like taking a picture and you fix it type of thing. It's, you know, oh, I know what to do, I fixed this, here was the problem, I fixed it. It's like, awesome, thank you. Which is huge. So really, like, everything we've always done, we try to do better, and we're always constantly learning and wanting to do better. So yeah, I think that's.
And I think, you know, the community, when there's something of this nature, like, the answer is, and the solution probably is, greater community support. You know, as the aquarium has grown, as the admissions have continued to be so great, and the people are coming in, like, they've reinvested a lot of those resources right back into the facility to make it better, to make it safer, to make it cleaner. They've reinvested more into, you know, the quality of their husbandry team and their care staff. Like, they've reinvested a lot of the money back into it. So if the community, if they were concerned about the animals and things like that nature, increased support is and has been the answer, at least over the course of the history of the aquarium, for us to be able to provide, you know, a better experience for the people coming in, but also just greater quality of care for the animals.
And I think one thing, I mean, it is a converted movie theater. It was never meant to be an aquarium, so there's been lots of challenges there. And I think with the greater community support, our ultimate goal is to build our own facility. And so that's really which, I think at that point, the care would go up even more. Like, I mean, the care is, you know, we always do the best that we can, but I think the ultimate best would be, let's build a building that is meant for caring for animals. Not, you know, let's make this, which has worked really great, like, let's make this work, and we've got to get creative with some of the things we do, as opposed to, this was built for caring for animals. I think there is a big, and there will be a big difference. So I mean, a lot of people have complaints about our floors, it's bumpy, but, you know, with the humidity and the salt, like, the floors were slippery, so we had to make a very rough thing so that way we're not slipping. So yeah, it's rough and it's bumpy, but you're not slipping. So there's just always things like, you know, we love our building, we think it's great, but we'd also love to leave it.
So tell us about where the aquarium's going in the near future. You've acquired a new reptile building, is that true, or what's coming up?
Yeah, so we've actually worked with another. We got this building, and we were originally just going to use it as like an education facility, a place where we could keep some of our, like, you know, when we had baby sharks, like, I need a big pool, or, you know, when we bring in rays. So it would be a better place to have a veterinary observation area, but also as our education team expanded and we needed more animals to go out to visit schools, we needed more space. And so that was really the first intention of it. And then I had a reptile group come to me, and they're like, you know, we really want to build a reptarium. I was like, you know, I've kind of got the space, we could make this work. And so it's really in teamwork with them that we're building this. So yeah, right now it's going to be anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 square feet in size, and it'll mostly just be reptiles, amphibians. We're really hoping for otters, but we'll see cool. what we're able to do. But really, I mean, it's really their dream and their goals. And, you know, for me, you know, there was things I was like, well, I really need to have this from these buildings. One of them being a turtle pond. Like, the need for us to have a turtle pond was so, I mean, we were getting like 3 or 4 turtles a month, and we're just like, we don't, like, some of them we have to take, and then we surrender them to the Department of Agriculture, and they ship them out. But for me, it's like, you know, like, I would hate to see those animals really leave. It'd be great if we had the space to take care of more of these and really educate people on turtles. So that, for me, was a need that the community had, and I've seen it done in other zoos and aquariums where they have these turtle ponds and they let people interact with the turtles by either feeding them mealworms or carrot sticks or whatever their diet is that day. And so for me, I was like, you know what, that is a need that we have, and I think this would be beneficial for the community. And it's another fun, interactive experience. You can learn about turtles, and I think everybody loves turtles, but they get turtles and then realize they're kind of gross, and they're hard to take care of. I don't know about gross. They're hard to take care of because they make their water gross. And so without the proper filtration, they end up a real headache, and so people end up just wanting to get rid of them. So we end up with tons and tons of turtles surrendered to us that we usually just turn around and have to give away. But it would be great at some point to, yeah, you surrendered this turtle and here he is still living his best life.
So you talk about community support. What are you doing to communicate to the community the work that the aquarium is doing at this point, and how can they best help you moving forward?
Yeah, so one of our big objectives, was to kind of educate about the quality of care, because if people did just read this article or something of that nature, or sometimes people will go in and they'll be like, oh, the animals kind of look sad. It's like, well, I mean, how familiar are you with like how a turtle looks, right? So that does kind of happen, that sometimes people will form their opinions based off very little information. So we've really tried with a lot of the social media to kind of give behind the scenes looks and views and perspectives into the quality of care that they receive. We've gone in and kind of shown kind of some of the regimens that some of the animals follow in regards to kind of just their care, their hygiene, their diet, different things of that nature. And we've just tried to provide a lot of opportunities for glimpses into the lives of these animals. And if people were watching that and actively following it, they would see these are animals that are loved, that are cared for, that are following specific plans and guidelines, and once again just cared for by people who are doing the best that they can to be able to provide a great life for them and also an amazing experience for the people of the community. And that's kind of been our objective, is to just try to showcase what that actually looks like, rather than maybe some of the things that they're reading online.
Excellent. I had the opportunity to do the shark encounter probably a year and a half ago. That was an incredible experience that you would never think would happen here in Idaho Falls,
No.
right? You dive into the shark tank, you get to swim with the sharks, and it was perfectly safe. We got to touch a couple of them,
Yeah.
and it was a cool experience. So all of these interactions, everything that you've provided to the community, I think are appreciated, as well as some of the feedback that you're receiving of how can we help improve the care for these animals and ensure that they're properly watched over and continue to live healthy lives into the future. So we thank you so much for coming in today. Is there anything else that you want to add?
I mean, really, I think the one thing I just want to thank everybody for the support that we've gotten through the years. I mean, really, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for our sponsors that, believed in me, really. I mean, that's what it really came down to. I mean, I had a building that looked like we could make an aquarium. We didn't even really have lights on it. I mean, the lights didn't work. The building sat empty. So we had businesses that, all of our sponsors, huge thanks, because really, it wouldn't be possible without them. Like, what you see in there could not have been done with $5,000 alone. And so the monetary value that those businesses gave us was huge. And just the people, coming in and opening as a work in progress. There's times I see the pictures of how we started and I just kind of sit my head down. It's like, I can't believe people supported this. And to see where we've grown, and none of this is possible if people don't come in the doors. So really, the community's support has been miraculous, and it's just something that has been amazing, and I never would have dreamed of, really. You start it and you're like, oh yeah, this might work, and yep, this is what we're going to open as. This is awesome. And to just see it just keep growing and keep getting better, and you have hiccups along the road and you get better, but really that community support has been great. So I mean, none of it is possible without this. The generous community, the people coming in, the people who, love the aquarium, and they let us know about it. And there's nothing makes our days better when, we're going shopping and people see us buying something tons. I mean, people see us at Walmart or Winco or wherever we're buying our produce from, and they're like, wow, you eat really healthy. And it's like, well, actually, it's not for us.
It's for the iguanas.
Yeah, it's for the iguanas. Or, you know, like, wow, you really like shrimp. Well, it's not for me. I wish it was for me, but, so, I mean, there's nothing, you know, when you get that, like, oh, we love the aquarium. It's so amazing. So, I mean, really, like, all of those people and all of this community is really just, it's a great community. We love to live in it. We love to support it, and that's why we go to the schools and we do fun things. Like, we like to do the 4th of July parade and do all sorts of parades. I think our animals love it. It gives them a chance to go outside, and so we love being part of the community and the support we've given it, and hopefully we've supported the community back. So.
Well, thank you, Arron and Ryan. Thanks for coming in today. Thanks for responding to some of these concerns and also sharing the work that you're doing at the East Idaho Aquarium.